Rick finishes assembling the neuroaccelerator, a device that temporarily boosts intelligence to genius level. He proudly shows it to Morty. Morty looks skeptically at the helmet with wires. Rick explains how the device works. It speeds up neural connections by 1,000 times. Morty asks if it's dangerous. Rick says it's fun. Rick puts the helmet on Morty. Morty is nervous but agrees. Rick turns on the device. Morty twitches, his eyes glow blue. Morty starts speaking in an unknown language made of mathematical symbols. Rick is shocked, realizing Morty is speaking pure mathematics. Morty looks at Rick's formula board and points out an error. He erases the formula and writes a new, correct one. Rick watches with his mouth open. Morty rewrites the portal gun code, making it 10 times more efficient. Rick tries to stop him, but Morty waves him off. Morty creates a new device called the Infinite Energy Generator. Rick says it's impossible. Morty says it's only impossible for Rick. Rick tries to turn off the neuroaccelerator, but Morty has locked the system. Rick says Morty has no right. Morty says he has the right to everything he can create. Morty announces he's going to remake the universe. He creates a portal to the perfect world. Rick tries to stop him, but Morty is stronger. The family walks into the garage and sees the portal. Morty explains they're going to a world without suffering. Beth agrees to go. Everyone enters the portal. Rick is last, reluctantly. He tells Morty he's making a mistake. Morty says that's Rick's mistake for not believing in something better. They arrive in the perfect world. Everything shines, gardens bloom, the weather is perfect. Jerry is delighted, Beth is skeptical, Summer is bored. Morty builds perfect houses for everyone. Each has their own perfect palace. Jerry runs around his palace, happy. Morty creates a perfect version of Jerry who is confident and without fears. The real Jerry feels uncomfortable. Morty creates a perfect Beth who is always smiling and never exhausted. The real Beth says that's not her. Morty creates a perfect Summer who is popular and without problems. Summer says it's boring and she wants to go back. Morty creates a perfect Rick without bad habits and with a smile. The real Rick is furious and tries to destroy him. The perfect Rick says he's the best version of Rick. The real Rick says the perfect Rick is just a copy without a soul. Morty starts ruling the world, creating laws for an ideal society. Everyone must be happy, or they're sent to re-education. The citizens start getting bored because everything is perfect. They secretly start looking for problems. Two citizens start arguing because they have nothing to do. Morty is confused. Rick explains that a perfect world breeds boredom, and boredom breeds conflict. Morty doesn't want to believe it. Morty tries to create perfect entertainment, a simulation of adventures, but people realize it's fake. The perfect world starts cracking. Fractures appear in reality. Morty tries to patch them, but they appear again. Rick offers to help, but on his terms. They have to destroy this world to create a real one. Morty wants to save it. Morty realizes that a perfect world kills the will to live. He starts doubting. Rick says he told him so. Morty and Rick join forces. They head to the central node to shut down the perfect world. Along the way, they see citizens arguing over food. Rick explains they're arguing because the food is too perfect. They reach the central node, a giant glowing sphere. Morty takes off the helmet but retains some knowledge. Morty deactivates the node. The perfect world vanishes, and everyone returns to the garage. The family looks tired but happy. Morty looks at his hands and says he's not a genius anymore but remembers everything. Rick asks what he learned. Morty says being smart doesn't mean being happy. Rick and Morty sit on the roof. Morty thanks Rick for not letting him destroy himself. Rick says he needed someone to do stupid things. They look at the stars. Morty says he's glad they're just Morty and Rick again. Rick agrees and says sometimes stupidity is the best thing they have. The next day, Morty tries to use his remaining knowledge to fix the toaster. He breaks it even more. Rick laughs. Morty says he thought he could still be smart. Rick says smart is overrated and being functional is better. Morty helps Summer with her homework, but his answers are too advanced. The teacher thinks she cheated. Summer is angry. Morty tries to build a simple device but fails. Rick says welcome back to reality. Morty says it feels weird not knowing everything. Beth notices Morty is quieter. She asks if he's okay. Morty says he misses knowing everything but doesn't miss the pressure. Morty and Rick go on a small adventure to a dimension of talking cats. Morty is relieved it's simple and stupid. Rick says not every adventure has to be about saving the universe. Morty says sometimes saving a cat is enough. Morty realizes being average has its perks. He enjoys just being Morty again. The family has dinner together. Jerry tells a terrible joke, and everyone groans. Morty laughs for the first time in days. Morty looks at Rick and thanks him for letting him be himself again. Rick says he was always himself, just a smarter version. Morty says he's glad he's not smart anymore. Rick says he's still smarter than Jerry. Jerry says he heard that. The whole family laughs together. Morty feels at peace. He closes his eyes and smiles. Morty wakes up feeling refreshed. He goes to the kitchen and sees Rick already drinking coffee. Rick says he looks almost normal. Morty helps Beth with cleaning and accidentally breaks a vase. Beth says not to worry, it's just a thing. Morty remembers when he could have created a new vase from thin air. Morty goes to the garage and sees Rick working on a new device. Rick asks if he wants to try. Morty says he's had his fill. Morty sits on the couch and watches a stupid show, laughing. Rick says the show is nonsense. Morty says that's exactly what he needs. Summer walks in and says Morty has become boring. Morty says he prefers the word calm. Morty goes for a walk in the park and sees kids playing soccer. He joins them and scores a goal. The kids cheer. Morty returns home and sees Rick on the portal gun. Rick found a dimension where everything is pizza. Morty says he'll pass. Rick says he's becoming boring. Morty sits down and draws a family portrait. Everyone looks funny but cute. Beth hangs the drawing on the fridge. Rick looks at the drawing and says his ears are too big. Morty says that's his best feature. The family gathers for dinner. Jerry tries to tell another joke, but everyone already knows it. Morty laughs the loudest. At night, Morty looks at the stars through the window. He thinks about how much he's seen. But he's happy to be here now. Rick walks into Morty's room and asks if he can't sleep. Morty says he's thinking about what was. Rick says the past is the past and to look to the future. Morty tells Rick he's glad he's his grandpa. Rick says he's glad too, even though Morty annoys him sometimes. They both look out the window. A portal is visible in the distance. Rick asks if Morty wants to see the universe again. Morty says maybe tomorrow. Morning. Morty wakes up and sees Rick is already in the garage working on a new invention. Rick says it's a machine that makes perfect coffee. Rick turns on the machine and it produces perfect coffee. Morty tries it and says it's the best coffee of his life. Rick says it's his 10th attempt. Jerry walks in and asks for coffee. Rick gives him some. Jerry says it's unusually good. Rick says he knows, he's a genius. Morty decides to help Rick with the project. He hands tools and listens to explanations. He likes being useful, even if he's not a genius. Rick finishes the invention, a portable copying machine. He makes a copy of himself. The copy says it's better than Rick. Rick says that's why he keeps the original. Morty laughs at the copy. The copy tries to joke but fails clumsily. Morty says it's not as funny as the original. Rick destroys the copy. The copy disappears with a scream. Rick says it won't be back. The family has lunch. Jerry tries to talk about his achievements, but no one listens. Morty says he's listening. Jerry is surprised. Jerry says Morty has become a better listener. Morty says he always listened, he just used to think about the universe. Beth hugs Morty and says he's grown up. Morty says he's still the same Morty, just a little wiser. Rick watches the scene and turns away. He pretends not to be moved, but there's a slight smile on his face. Evening. Morty sits on the roof with Rick. He says he thinks he's happy. Rick says happiness is a choice. Morty asks Rick if he's ever been happy. Rick says he was when he invented the portal gun, but then he realized it was just the beginning. Morty asks what about now? Rick says now he's happy when Morty doesn't ask too many questions. Morty laughs. They watch the stars in silence. A comet is visible in the distance. Rick tells Morty to look. Morty notices the comet is moving strangely. Rick says it's not a comet, it's a spaceship. The spaceship lands near the house. An alien steps out and says he's looking for Rick Sanchez. Rick says he's Rick and asks what he wants. The alien says he heard Rick created the neuroaccelerator and wants to buy it. Rick says it's broken. The alien doesn't believe him. Rick asks if the alien wants to check. He turns on the device, but it doesn't work. The alien says it really is broken. The alien flies away. Morty asks if Rick tricked him. Rick says he didn't trick him, he just didn't tell him the whole truth. Morty asks what the truth is. Rick says the device works, but he doesn't want it to fall into the wrong hands. Morty asks if Rick is afraid someone will become smarter than him. Rick says he's afraid someone will become smarter than him and create a perfect world like Morty did. Morty asks what's wrong with a perfect world. Rick says Morty saw what happened to it. Morty thinks. Morty says maybe the problem isn't the perfect world, but how we create it. Rick says Morty has become a philosopher. They go back inside. The family is already asleep. Rick tells Morty to go to bed because tomorrow they'll have new adventures. Morty says he's ready. Morty lies in bed, looks at the ceiling, and smiles. He feels like he's in the right place. At night, Morty dreams of the perfect world. But now he sees it differently, not as a utopia, but as a reminder that chaos is life. Morty wakes up feeling renewed. He goes to the kitchen and sees Rick already making breakfast. Rick asks if he slept well. Morty says he dreamed of the perfect world. Rick asks what he learned. Morty says he doesn't want to live there, he wants to live here with his family. Rick says that's a wise decision. He hands Morty a cup of coffee. Morty takes it. The family gathers for breakfast. Everyone talks about plans for the day. Jerry wants to go to the park, Beth to the museum, Summer to the mall. Morty asks if he can stay home. Rick says they're not staying home. They're going to a dimension where time flows backward. Morty asks if they have to. Rick says it's fun. Morty agrees. They open a portal and step in. Everything moves backward. Morty laughs watching people walk backward. They see locals eating backward. Morty asks how they do that. Rick says they're just used to it. Rick and Morty decide to try eating in this dimension. They sit at a table and eat backward. Morty says it's weird. Rick says it's interesting. After eating, they feel strange. Rick says it looks like they broke the local rules. The locals start chasing them. Rick opens a portal and they jump back. Rick says they're running again. Morty says it was fun. They return to the garage. Rick asks if Morty wants to eat normally. Morty says he's hungry. The family has dinner again. Jerry tells how he went to the park. Morty listens with a smile. He understands that even simple stories can be interesting. Morty says he missed evenings like this. Beth says they missed him too. Morty smiles. Final shot, Rick and Morty sit on the roof, looking at the stars. Morty says he's happy. Rick says he is too. They smile and look into infinity. End.